Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2011 slasher sequel, Scream 4. Now, Scream 4 is one of those films that when it came out, it actually didn't do that well. It was a surprise disappointment for the studio financially. I think it made a profit, but nowhere near as much as the studio was hoping for. And that's why the franchise was stuck in limbo until very recently. Now, I don't think it's that bad. In fact, I actually like this. It was a sequel that I went into having very low expectations because of the reputation. I was familiar with my friends' views of it or other critics that I follow who were not a fan of it. So I just went into it with really low expectations, and for the most part, it exceeded a fair amount of them. I was surprised by how much I liked this movie. So Scream 4 is once again directed by Wes Craven. This is the last film that he directed before he died. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't miss him. He was not only such a great filmmaker, but he was also a great man. By all intents and purposes, from those who knew him, he was the real deal. He was the genuine article. Yeah, he had some moments where he might be a bit of a troll, or he might be a little dark in terms of his humor, but he always was a good man at his heart. Like, people who knew him had nothing but good things to say about Wes, and you could tell that Wes really had a blast coming back to this franchise after over a decade, and it really did pay off for me. I personally feel that this is a great send-off for Wes. I feel that he went out on a high note with his direction in this film. It was slick, it was stylish, it maintained that sense of dark, snide sensibility and vibe that a lot of his films had, and he was well known for in terms of his way to balance horror and humor. And the way that he set up shots was really solid. It was very effective. The right amount of movement. I feel that Wes showcased that he still had it. I was cheering for him and rooting for him throughout the film. Just these sequences, the way that they were framed, and the way that he shot them. I was like, this is really good. I would say it's up there with some of his better work around this time when it comes to his filmography. It's definitely an improvement over My Soul to Take or Cursed or even Scream 3, at least for me. I feel that Wes did that good of a job with it. And you could just tell in interviews that Wes was just beaming, and he was just very enthusiastic, and it came across that way with his direction. It was very lively. It was like this franchise, and coming back to it after so long was a shot in the arm. And I think Wes also saw the writing on the wall. I think he realized that he didn't have a lot of films left in him, and he knew he was getting up there in age. And I think he saw this as just a fun last hurrah. And I think that is very evident. It's the epitome of a last hurrah for a very accomplished and remarkable talent when it comes to the horror genre. And Wes is a big reason why this film is as good as it is because he's back. And I'm not going to say that he's better than ever, but he's like that grizzled, wily veteran wrestler who comes back for a few matches, and they're past their prime, and they're still doing their old moves, and they look pretty good doing it. and you got people in the audience chanting, "You still got it." Like, it's that kind of thing with Wes's direction in Scream 4. It was a great send-off for him. I feel that this was a good send-off for the franchise. It was a good way to give the fans a goodbye to characters that they love, and also introduce some new ones, and to talk about new rules, and to skewer the horror remakes. And it was something that I felt was clever, and I felt that Wes just nailed it. He nailed the whole vibe and everything that the film was trying to do when it comes to its script. Speaking of the script, Kevin Williamson returns. I've heard some things that Kevin Williamson was not really necessarily 100% as involved with the script as the credits might say when it comes to crediting him for the entire screenplay. Apparently there was a lot of other stuff that was done by other people, and this led to some controversy. Whoever wrote this, whether it was Kevin or a combination of people and Kevin, I think they did a decent enough job. I think it's a mixed bag. I think the script is a big reason why the film is just at best above average for me, because it doesn't have a consistent tone when it comes to the humor. It also doesn't have a consistent quality when it comes to the humor or the characters, when it comes to the writing. The humor in particular. Like, there are some really fun, cheeky moments, like the opening sequence. And there are some lines that made me smile or made me chuckle. But then the screenplay has this bad habit of stabbing jokes to death. So you'll have a scene where you'll have these two cops, and one of them will remark about how cops in these horror films never live. They always die. So being a cop in this situation is the worst. It sucks. Might as well sign a death warrant. And that made me chuckle, because one of the cops would say, "Well, unless you're Bruce Willis. So if you're a cop in one of these movies, you're gonna die. But if you're Bruce Willis, you're safe." And I was like, okay, that's kind of funny. But then they killed the fucking joke a few scenes later, where one of the cops, played by Anthony Anderson, dies, and then he screams, "Fuck you, Bruce Willis!" And that was just awkward. It was just dumb, and you killed the joke. And there are other moments too where you have badass one-liners, like, "Don't fuck with the original." Like, that is so fucking badass. It was such a great line. It made me cheer. It made me clap. I was like, that is fucking awesome. But prior to that is an incredibly lame one-liner, and it's just the word "clear." So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, this script is so inconsistent when it comes to its comedy, when it comes to the one-liners. Like, there are some moments that make you go, "Wow, that was funny." Or some scenes that are really clever, some bits of satire that really work, but then other ones that fall flat. The characters, when it comes to the original cast, some are definitely stronger than others. I really loved the way that they wrote Sydney. Finally, this character evolves. Finally, this character matures. She has now moved past being a victim, and she's now focused on being a survivor. It's everything that I felt was missing from Scream 3, and it was really nice to see here. Gale Weathers, they tried to do some stuff with her to provide her some inner conflict in terms of her impact on pop culture and decisions by killers throughout the years in Woodsboro, and she feels guilt over writing the book, and that was decent enough, but there were a lot of other things that just felt kind of deja vu when it comes to some of the drama with her character. Dewey, it was nice to see him get rewarded and be the sheriff of Woodsboro. I thought that was a nice touch, but it felt like he was wasted in some other ways because it felt like he really wasn't in it that much and didn't really have a whole lot to do. I do like the fact that none of them died. That was a really good choice. And in hindsight, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'm just saying, in hindsight, it's something that, in my opinion, makes this film even stronger because of the fact that it was a way for these characters to walk off into the sunset intact. Now, the new cast, there are some that I like, and there are a lot of them that I don't, or I'm just incredibly indifferent on, and I don't really give a fuck about. Emma Roberts, her character Jill Roberts was there, but the character's strengths really come from the twist. When the character reveals their sinister nature and their evil intentions, then that character is really strong. When the character is just trying to be your typical final girl or the new girl in the franchise, it's a very take it or leave it. But I really loved Kirby Reed, her friend. I really liked that character. It was a good way to have a little bit of a tribute to someone like Randy, but make the character feel like its own character still. And she had her own personality, her own drive. I thought it was a huge mistake to kill her off, just like it was to kill off Randy. I like the cop characters, except for Anthony Anderson's character, Anthony, saying "fuck you, Bruce Willis." That was stupid. But prior to that, the cops I actually enjoyed. They were somewhat memorable compared to the cops in other films in this franchise, like Scream 2, or I don't think there were a lot of cops in Scream 3, but yeah, the cops in Scream 2 for sure. At least the ones that were in the cop car, or that were watching the house. You also have Charlie Walker, who is Robbie's best friend, who's played by Rory Culkin. I like that character too. I actually sympathize with that character. I wanted him to get some, and then when the twist happens, it was kind of a bummer because I actually legitimately did start to like that guy. So that's more than I could say for the supporting cast and a lot of the other Scream sequels. Like, I liked at least 2 of the main new cast members. Yes, one of them turns out to be one of the killers, but I still liked the character enough throughout the film that I didn't want to see them get stabbed. So it definitely helped me get invested in the story. Kate Roberts, who's Jill's mother and Sydney's aunt, like, they try to do something with this character that, I don't know, was just there for me. Judy Hicks, who's the new deputy sheriff. I guess she was a former classmate of Sydney's at one point. They try to recreate the dorky, dopey charm that Dewey had in the first film and other films in the series with this character. And to me, it's just diminishing returns. I don't really think it works that well. Didn't really care for this character or her lemon squares. Alison Brie, her character, Rebecca Walters, a bitchy publicist. Definitely nailed that. I feel the writing was definitely on point when it comes to this character being a bitch with a capital B. Olivia, you really don't get to see a whole lot of her except for like maybe 2 or 3 scenes at best. But she was decent enough. I never hated the character. Trevor, this guy sucked. I didn't like the writing for this character. Even the script seemed like they knew this guy was lame and he was a buzzkill, or he was always somebody who was just ruining the mood. So why the fuck was this guy here? Uh, and I'm trying to think of anyone else in the cast when it comes to the main cast members. Oh yeah, of course the guy who plays Robbie. Yeah, Erik. Yeah, Erik Knudsen, who played Robbie Mercer. Didn't like the Robbie character. Especially his gimmick of this stupid fucking webcam that he had with an earpiece that he was wearing all the time and doing live streams and live recording. Yeah, it's ahead of its time, especially when you look at what's going on today. But it was just handled in such a fashion that it just came across as really daft and idiotic and just silly. So I didn't care for that character. He was just a gimmick and nothing else. He almost looked like a character you would see in that film Stay Alive. If anybody fucking remembers that movie. So yeah, characters could be stronger when it comes to their arcs, but it also could have been a hell of a lot worse. And I can't talk about characters without talking about the twist. I loved it. I thought the twist was terrific. I know some people don't like it. They think it's ridiculous. They think it's stupid or it's way too over the top. I really liked it. It surprised me. I thought it was pretty ballsy. I thought it was the most surprising and effective twist since the first film. It fit. The motivation worked. It didn't really come across as that random to me. And it was something that I thought was interesting. I also like how Kevin Williamson skewered and talked about the rules of the modern remake, which sadly haven't fucking changed after so many years. After a decade has gone by since this film has come out, and the rules have not changed. It's so similar to the point where we have another Scream film which literally just recycles the same fucking shit, the same fucking argument, but this time around replace remake with requel. So it's the same fucking thing. Even after a decade, we're still at that same fucking place. So this, to me, still had a place. It still had a place when it comes to talking about a not necessarily new part of the horror genre, because the horror remake had been a thing, but it wasn't nearly as prevalent as it was starting to be around this time. So I felt it was a good film and a good point in history to do a Scream film to skewer and take a stab at the current trend of the horror remake. And this film brought back the edge. That's another thing I really liked about this movie, is it brought back the edge to the franchise that had been missing. There are some sequences in this that are really graphic and incredibly violent. The death of Olivia. It's arguably the most graphic and gory death in the entire series. Yes, a lot of it is aftermath, but even prior to the aftermath shots of the crime scene, it's still really bloody. You still see multiple stabs from Ghostface, and then afterwards, a room that's just absolutely coated in blood. And you see her body, and the guts are spilling out, and it's all done practically. And that's a sequence that just made me go, ooh, like, god damn. Like, it really made me feel like the horror was pushed into the forefront at that moment with this franchise, because that's a horrific sequence when it comes to the gravity of it and how intense it is. When Sydney walks into that room and it's just covered in blood, and blood is on the ceiling and it's on the walls and it's all over the bed, and her body is there and the guts are just spilling out all over the bed, and it's just a really intense sequence. and that alone kicked this film up another notch for me. And there are little moments like that where the violence just has a little bit more of an edge to it, despite there being some stupid, dumb shit here and there. And there's just something to be said about having the original cast and having them get the last laugh and having them also live to see another day. I thought that was a nice touch as well. And it was unexpected, especially when it comes to the fourth entry in a franchise. You would think that one of them would get knocked off at that point, but the film didn't go there. And I respect Kevin Williamson and the other writers that were involved for doing that. And speaking of the original cast, might as well talk about the cast. It's a good cast. David Arquette, he did what he was asked to do, and he did it well. He played the town's sheriff. He played Sheriff Dewey. It was a nice change of pace for the character. It showed that he had matured in his own way. And yeah, it's a bummer. It's a shame that he didn't have as much to do, and they had his deputy really do the most stuff in the climax. But at the same time, they still provided him with that rub. They gave him the sheriff job, which I thought was really nice. And it was fun to see David Arquette again, especially when it comes to that context, playing a different take on Dewey, because now he's more responsible. Now he has to deal with the pressure of being the town sheriff. Neve Campbell is once again a solid foundation to this franchise, and another really stellar performance from her. I didn't feel she was sleepwalking through this. I didn't feel that she didn't give her all here. In the few scenes that she was in, she really made the most of them. And I really thought it was a good performance. Courtney Cox, she did a decent enough job too as Gail. I would say I liked David Arquette and Neve Campbell's performance more. Her performance in this is decent enough, but there are some moments where you can kind of tell that the character is starting to become a little bit of an old hat, and they're kind of running out of things for this character to do, or to make this character more intriguing, or to provide her with more layers. Emma Roberts, when she's just playing the girl next door, serviceable enough. When she's playing a psychotic, manipulative, crazy person, like at the end, I thought she was fantastic. I know there are people, one of my best friends included, who didn't buy it and didn't think she did that good of a job, or didn't really think that she was the right casting. But I bought it hook, line, and sinker. Like, I thought that performance was chilling, especially in the end when she's revealing her plan, and she just committed fully to that, and I respect her so much. Because, yeah, it is silly, it is ridiculous, the whole kicking my own ass bit. It's taking the bit from Liar Liar to 11, but there are instances in real life where women are this manipulative, where they beat themselves up in order to get somebody sent to jail or worse. So I think it was a ballsy move to do that, and I respect it when it comes to showing that, because that actually does happen. It's not just a Hollywood fabrication. Like, that's a real thing. Maybe not to this extreme, but it does happen. And I just thought it was full of a lot of moments where you're like, oh my god, like, she's actually going there. She's throwing herself into the table. She's ripping her hair out. She's smacking herself in the head. She's stabbing herself. Like, I thought that was pretty twisted. And there was just something relentless about her portrayal of the character that I really liked. She was just like a Terminator at the end. Like, she would not give up ever until Sydney was dead. Is it believable? No. But this is a franchise where at this point, it's not very believable anyway. It's unbelievable. It's unreal to the fullest. And it didn't bother me. I know there are a lot of people who don't like it, and I get it. That's fine. To each their own. It did not bother me at all. I liked it. I thought it was handled well, and I thought Emma Roberts nailed it when it comes to those scenes at the end of the film. Hayden Panettiere, I probably butchered her last name. I think it's like Panettiere. I thought Hayden did a nice job too. I thought her character was quirky, had a decent amount of personality and charm. I liked her. I thought she was not only hot, but she seemed like the kind of girl that I actually would like to sit down and watch a movie with. And I really like her taste. I mean, she's into Argento films. She's into a lot of other stuff. So, yeah, it was really, really a shame to see her get stabbed, because she seemed like a rare breed, at least from what I've seen when it comes to female characters in a horror film. Like, to have that kind of eclectic taste for the horror genre, like that is definitely something that's not very common. Anthony Anderson, he was fun until he wasn't. It's like I liked the stuff leading up to his "fuck you, Bruce Willis" moment, but then when he was trying to have his Oscar moment or trying to steal the movie with his death scene, that's when he lost me. But I'm not going to say the performance was bad, though. It was just inconsistent, just like the writing for his character. Adam Brody, he was decent enough too. I thought he and Anthony Anderson had some good chemistry. Rory Culkin, I liked him. I thought he did a good job nailing the nerdy aspect of that character. I felt for him. I sympathized with him because I too also wanted to get a chance to nail Hayden. Like I was totally along with this guy. I'm like, man, like, get her. Like, you know, this is your opportunity to score, dude. And then you find out it's all a sham and he's one of the killers. And he did okay when he was revealing his true colors, but I wouldn't say it was on par with some of the other performances when it comes to some of the other killers. I would say it's better than some, but I mean, what I mean by on par, I mean it's not on par with some of the better performances when it comes to the killers. I will take it any day of the week over some of the weakest ones, though, especially the most recent entry in the franchise. Mary McDonnell, who was the president's wife in Independence Day, she plays Jill's mother and Sydney's aunt. She was there to be kind of a maternal grandmother kind of figure, and she handled that role fine enough, but I just felt like we didn't really know enough about this character and really get to see enough scenes of this character to really feel for her that much. Marley Shelton, I mean, it's definitely a departure from her role in The Sandlot. And it's one of those things where, yeah, it's fine. I don't think the performance was bad. I just don't really care for the character that much. Marielle Jaffe is Olivia. She was hot. She was gorgeous, but didn't leave a ton of an impression when it comes to her acting. She was only in the film for like 3 scenes before she was killed, so it's not like she really had a lot of screen time to begin with. But she wasn't bad enough to the point where it was very obvious and was a glaring flaw. Nico Tortorella, I thought that performance was pretty weak. Definitely looked like somebody who walked off the set of some CW show. Erik Knudsen, another performance I didn't care for. I didn't like the character at all. I felt the character was poorly written, but I also didn't feel the performance was that great either. I just didn't buy it. I think the guy was miscast. And at the same time, I don't think that anyone could really pull off that stupid role. The guy with the fucking webcam, earpiece, like, nobody's pulling that shit off. it was fun to see Anna Paquin and Kristen Bell and their cameos in Stab 7. Like, those things were pretty fun. And I thought Lucy Hale and Shanae Grimes were fine when it comes to the scenes from Stab 6. And Britt Robertson as Marnie and Amy Tiergarten as Jenny, who were also a part of the opening. They were serviceable enough as well for their little brief scenes. And of course, Roger L. Jackson was once again very chilling and spooky as the voice of Ghostface. So all in all, pretty good cast. The cinematography by Peter Deming, it's pretty solid. It's nothing spectacular. It's nothing that's going to wow you visually, but it fit the film well. It wasn't too jarring. It worked. The editing by Peter McNulty, there were some times where I thought the editing was quite good. I thought it was quite noteworthy. There were some other times where it just kind of was there. So I would say it's above average. It's nothing excellent. It's nothing terrific when it comes to the editing, but it's not something that you really notice either. Like, it's not poorly edited, at least not for me personally. And the score by Marco Beltrami is another thing. It fits the film well. It suits it. It does elevate a few scenes when it comes to the suspense and the tension, but it's not a score that you're going to listen to over and over again. And the original songs that they used for the soundtrack, not necessarily for me either. I don't even remember any of them, but, it doesn't make or break the film. And for a movie that's 111 minutes, which is honestly one of the shorter films in the series, by the way, it went by at a good pace. Because like I said, I was invested enough in the plot. I felt there was a decent enough reason to bring the legacy characters back into the fold. I felt there was a interesting spin on pop culture and the horror genre you could provide in terms of the satire when it comes to the horror remake trend. I thought the opening was really clever with the film within a film within another film. That was very super meta, but done in a way that was, in my opinion, pretty great. I thought it was really well structured and definitely did throw in a few surprises. The new cast could have been a lot better, but also could have been a hell of a lot worse. The twist I thought was terrific. I thought it worked. Despite it being completely ludicrous and over the top, I still felt it worked. I mean, it made sense that she was doing those things in order to get that kind of fame, and it was a really intriguing way to turn the victim on its head. I thought that was an interesting take on it, and had its fair share of moments that made you cheer. You never fuck with the original, and or I was thinking like, don't fuck with the original. Like, yeah, it was a great crowd pleasing fun line, and like I said, it brought back the edge. Like, there are scenes in this that are really violent, and it's not like balls to the wall gore, but there's a fair amount of blood that gets spilled in this one. And it just felt like things were just more vicious. Like, this Ghostface killer was just not fucking around. And I definitely did appreciate that. And all in all, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun, entertaining sequel, a decent enough way to end the franchise, if that's really how things ultimately wound up. Honestly, in hindsight, I wish that was the case, but what can you do? But anyway, that's my thoughts on Scream 4, and as always, I will see you later. See ya.